And a holly jolly to you. Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Heather and as always I'm reading with a vengeance and I hope you are as well. If you're new to my channel, very warm welcome to you. If you're an OG watcher, thank you so much for coming back. I'm very happy to have you all here and I hope you're all doing very well. Today I am doing a tag and it's an original tag. Hopefully it doesn't suck. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope everybody had a very good Thanksgiving. Hopefully, if all goes well, this is publishing on the day after Thanksgiving, so Black Friday. I am not a fan of Black Friday, so I won't say happy Black Friday, but if you're shopping, I wish you the very best of luck. But if you do celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope everybody was able to celebrate with their family and loved ones. It's just my husband and I, so we don't really do anything. Plus, I don't eat turkey. He doesn't like turkey, so most of the time we will prepare like a bunch of really yummy sides and have that as our Thanksgiving meal. But because of our new living situation, it's not really conducive to that. So it's just another day for us. But I do hope that everybody had a really wonderful day. But for me personally, the day after Thanksgiving is the first day of the Christmas season. I don't really start getting into the Christmas spirit until the day after Thanksgiving. So I thought in the spirit of that, I would create a Christmas themed tag to get me in the Christmas spirit, and hopefully I can do the same for you. I have prepared some prompts that are considered Christmas traditions. Some might be centuries old, some might be fairly new, but just things that make you think of Christmas that usually pop up at Christmas time. And I decided to pair some books with those themes. Now, this is not meant to be exclusionary. If you do not celebrate Christmas, you can still enjoy this tag, but I celebrate Christmas, so that's why I decided to do this. Now, I understand Christmas has a foundation in religion, but to be honest, I've never really been a religious person. I was just raised in a family. We celebrate it in the way that I think many families celebrate it, in that we put a tree up, we decorate, we have a wonderful feast, we kiss under the mistletoe, we exchange gifts. So in that spirit, that's how I wanted to kind of do this tag and celebrate in a bookish way. So of the people who celebrate Christmas, we all have our traditions. Some of them old, some of them new, some of them weird. So I've selected 13 to pair some books with. Now, Christmas for me is, and for a lot of people, is a time of reflection on the year that has just passed, and also a time of looking forward to the year to come, the new year. So in that spirit, for each prompt, it can be a choice of a book that you have read this past year or a book that you look forward to in the coming year. Now, one or two of the prompts you can't really choose, and you'll see when you get to them. So whether or not you're in the Christmas spirit yet, I hope you enjoy the tag. Let's get started. So the first prompt is the traditional Christmas colors, red, gold, and green. I believe this has roots in religion, in that the red symbolized the blood of Christ. The gold was one of the gifts by the three kings, and the green symbolized everlasting life. But whether or not any of that is true, what is a book that has any combination of these colors on the cover? Now, it has to have at least two of them, but any combination. So either red and green and gold, green and red. The one that I picked for this prompt is Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. I was lucky enough to get all three colors on this cover, and it is one that I look forward to reading next year. This takes place in the 1960s in New York City, has to do with crime, but I think ultimately is a family saga, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one. The next tradition I picked was carol singing. Now, carols used to be songs sung at festive celebrations throughout the year, and then as time has gone on, they became songs that are sung mostly at Christmas. What is your favorite Christmas carol? And from the title of that Christmas carol, pick a word that also shows up in the title of a book. I have a couple of Christmas carols that I absolutely enjoy. I love The Little Drummer Boy. I love Do You Hear What I Hear? I love Silver Bells, but my absolute favorite Christmas carol that I never turn off, that never gets old, that I absolutely love is Last Christmas by George Michael. And the book I picked with the word last in it is The Last Girl to Die by Helen Sarah Fields. This was just recently published in September, so I had come across it in looking for new books a couple of months ago. So this is a book that I look forward to reading next year. This is a mystery thriller about a missing girl in Scotland. I really look forward to reading this one next year. The next tradition is Christmas trees, wreaths, and evergreen foliage. These were all things used to celebrate the winter festivals. And for this, what is a book in which nature is a character? This was a tough one for me because I so wanted to talk about The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak, which has been one of my favorites this year, which of course features a tree that you get a perspective of the story from. Absolutely love this book, but I've gone on and on about it this year. So I decided a book that I came across. I can't remember what I was looking for when I found this title, but it'll be a book that I look forward to reading next year. And that is In the Shadow of the Banyan by Vadi Ratner. This is a historical fiction novel that takes place in Cambodia. I believe it's a somewhat family saga, coming of age, with a backdrop of the civil war that's going on in Cambodia. And from what I understand, the atmosphere of Cambodia, the landscape, the climate, everything is a really, really big part of this story. And I think it's really going to be captured in a way that really is engaging for me personally because it's through the eyes of a child. So I am very much looking forward to reading this next year. The next tradition is sending Christmas cards, and I think this was started by a Victorian entrepreneur, Sir Henry Cole, who in the mid-1800s commissioned someone to create like 1,000 cards to send out because it was an easier way to send greetings to his friends. So then I think it became popular in the UK to send Christmas cards. And for this one, what is an epistolary book that you either read this year or that you look forward to reading next year? For this one, I picked World War Z by Max Brooks. I read this a few months back and I really enjoyed it. It's terrifying the way it's set up. It's formatted in the way that the author is interviewing survivors of the apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse, and what they went through. So it's documenting these people's stories on how they survived the zombie apocalypse. And it is written in a way that you feel like it's a true story. And it was terrifying and brilliant. If you haven't read this book, I really recommend it if that sounds something that you'd be interested in. It's not gory or anything like that, but I would classify it as a horror. It gave me a proper scare. The next tradition is mistletoe. Now, mistletoe, the actual plant, was revered because of its ability to withstand the winters and be able to grow through the harshness of the weather. It's also been associated with the goddess of love. It's been a symbol of peace, which has led people to believe that kissing underneath it leads to good luck for the new year, maybe even leads to love. But let's be honest, most of the time we are caught unawares under the mistletoe by someone we don't want to be kissed by, or we're chased with mistletoe by that crazy aunt. For this prompt, what is a book that features unrequited love? Now, it would be really easy to talk about a romance here. There is a massive tonnage of books out there that feature unrequited love. But I decided to kind of flip this prompt on its head, and I went for a book that I don't know why it popped up into my mind immediately when I thought of unrequited love, but it did. And that is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. I read this a few months back and I absolutely enjoyed it. It follows two sisters in Nigeria. They're very close, but they're very different. One has a habit of killing off her boyfriends and then goes to her sister to help clean up the mess. These men fall in love with this woman, and for one reason or another, and she always has a good excuse, seemingly good excuse, for murdering them. So what does that say about me that is what I've come up with for my idea of unrequited love? If you haven't read this book, I It's very well written. It's got a lot of humor in it. Just a very enjoyable read. The next tradition is, of course, the jolly fat man himself, Santa Claus. Saint Nicholas was a patron saint of children, and upon his death, he was made a saint, and they gave him, I think, his own feast. I think in Holland, his name evolved to Sinterklaas, and then ultimately Santa Claus. Let's face it, Santa Claus is a guy who dresses funny and breaks into your house. Yes, he leaves presents, but still. For this prompt, what is a book that features a character that is not really likable, but you kind of love him anyway? For this prompt, I picked Skink, who is a character in the Skink series by Carl Hiaasen. I think there's 8 in the series, and they're absolutely a delight to read. I have talked about Carl Hiaasen's books several times before. I'll always recommend the books. They always take place in Florida. There's usually a mystery in the background, but it's just a bunch of really quirky characters and really quirky things happen, just hijinks going on. And Skink is a character who he used to be the governor of Florida, and then he just kind of, something happened to him. I can't remember, and I probably wouldn't tell you anyways because I wouldn't want to spoil it. But he ends up going off the grid and living as like this weird homeless person, walking around with like a shower cap on his head. But he's a do-gooder. He totally believes in nature, and he goes around and he does some bad things to try to prevent bad people from doing bad things to the nature, whether it be the trees and the foliage and the Everglades and the swamps or the animals that live within. So of course I absolutely love him. Skink notwithstanding, the whole series is just super fun to read, and I'm not usually a rereader, but I have been considering rereading some of them because they're just a hoot, which is the name of another Carl Hiaasen book. The next tradition are nativity scenes. Now, of course, this is based in religion. It's usually a scene either by live people or with statues or models that commemorates the birth of Jesus. Honestly, when I think of nativity scenes, I think of one of my favorite Christmas movies, and that's The Ref. And a minor subplot in The Ref is that one of the teenagers has stolen the baby Jesus from the town nativity scene, and it's hilarious. For this prompt, name a book that is a family-based historical fiction. For this one, I picked Trust by Hernan Diaz. This is a book that's been talked a lot about recently and that I've added to my TBR for next year. And I believe this is a compilation of 4 manuscripts telling the story of a wealthy family leading up to the Depression in the United States. I think it talks about money and power, but at its core, it is a family saga, and I'm very much looking forward to reading that next year. The next tradition is The Elf on a Shelf. I have always thought that The Elf on the Shelf is a little bit creepy. Never been a fan. You know, he's just creepy looking. If you just look at him, he's creepy. Not to mention the idea of setting out something to make your children feel like they're being watched when you're not in the room. I don't know how I feel about that. But for this prompt, what is a book that has been sitting on your shelf that you want to read, but every time you look at it, you just don't, you never do? It stares at you, it mocks you, and you avoid it. For me, that's this guy, Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. I started it about a week ago, and it wasn't that I wasn't enjoying myself, but it wasn't engaging enough for me. I think there were just some other books on my shelf that were that were mocking me and saying, "You want to read me more right now?" And I just felt like I wanted to read something that I wanted to read at the moment. And this is one of the books that I have on my 22 and 2022, so I feel like I really need to get to it by the end of the year to complete my 22 and 2022, but it's not looking good. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to it. I'm looking at Notes on an Execution, Taste by Stanley Tucci, Hide. I'm looking at so many other books on my shelf right now that are calling me and shouting at me in a much louder voice than this does. But it mocks me nonetheless. The next tradition is Christmas movies. Do you guys watch Christmas movies at Christmas time? My husband and I have a set of 4 that we watch every single year. Up until last year, I think we added a couple of new ones, but the 4 that we've watched for 10 years straight without fail are my 2 favorite and then his 2 favorite. And my 2 favorite have become his favorites of his, and his 2 favorites have become favorites of mine, and so it's just a good time. But my 2 favorite are Love Actually and The Ref, and then my husband's favorites are Elf and Fred Claus. All of them super fun. Absolutely love watching them every year. But for this prompt, what is a favorite adaptation from a book, or what is a book that you hope and wish for an adaptation for? For me, hands down, I want to see Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby made into a movie. I love that book so much. I cannot stop talking about it and telling people to read it. Although it's been a few videos since I brought it up, so I'm so happy that this video has given me the opportunity to talk about it again. If you haven't read this book yet, what are you waiting for? It is so good. I feel like I read somewhere that it might be in the process. Could just be making that up, because I think I've just looked and seen articles where like other bloggers have said, this is who I would have star in this movie. So I might be confusing that a little bit, but I hope they make this into a movie. It would be a fantastic movie. So good. If you don't know, it's basically about these 2 fathers, Ike and Buddy Lee. They're not friends. One's white, one's black, but their sons, their respective sons, were married to each other, and then they were murdered. So then these fathers who never really accepted their sons' lifestyles, as kind of redemption, as kind of atonement, they get together and they want to find out what happened to their sons. And so they go on the road to start their own investigation. And it is such a great story. I absolutely love it. The dialogue between Ike and Buddy Lee, masterful. So good. Read it. The next tradition is ugly sweaters. I wish I had my ugly sweater to wear for you for this video, but it got packed away. Have you guys ever been to an ugly sweater party? They're ridiculous, but they're so much fun. What is a book that you read this past year that made you laugh out loud? Now, the book I picked for this one, it's not meant to be a comedy. It's not meant to be funny, but there were parts in it that I absolutely remember laughing out loud. And that is one of my favorite books from this year is The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. There were just parts in it where the dialogue, the main character, Cyril, he's just snarky and sarcastic, and just the dialogue between him and some of his friends were just such a joy to read. And I listened to this book, and I remember being in my car by myself and just laughing out loud to some of the dialogue. So much fun. Even if you aren't looking for a comedy, which this is not, it is such a fantastic book. Highly recommend it. The next tradition is eggnog. Now, eggnog is something people either love it or they hate it. I love it. It's delicious. Starbucks eggnog latte. Delicious. Eggnog with a little brandy in it. Delicious. For this prompt, what is a book that you love that a lot of people seem to hate? Or vice versa, what's a book that you hate that a lot of people seem to love? For this one, I picked Tangerine by Christine Mangan. This book I read a few months back, and it's one of those books that took me by surprise. It took me a long time to read it because it's so lowly rated on Goodreads. It's like a 3.2 or something like that. And so I was kind of hesitant to read it, and then I read it, and it's such a surprise. It was so good. It basically follows these 2 women, Alice and Lucy. They are friends. They become close. But bad things happen when Lucy's around. And so something happens when they're in school, and then Alice kind of picks up and moves, and she moves to Morocco with her husband. And she's there for about a year. She's never heard from Lucy, and then all of a sudden Lucy shows up on her doorstep. And she's not sure why, but then they become friends again, and everything is cool until weird stuff starts happening again. Really good. I really enjoyed kind of having Morocco in the backdrop of this book. I'm not usually a huge fan of something being super, super atmospheric, and it wasn't, but you got just enough so that you can envision Morocco and the climate and the nature and the people, and it was just so much fun to read because of that. But yeah, this is one of those, it's like a historical fiction with a mystery involved, which I absolutely love. The next tradition, of course, is exchanging gifts. What is a book that you read this year that as you were reading it, you thought, you know what, this book would be perfect for so-and-so, or so-and-so would absolutely love this book? So for the purposes of privacy, I'm not going to name my so-and-so, but I have a friend who has just had a year from hell. She's had a really hard time. And I can't help but think of gifting her Penguin the Magpie by Cameron Bloom. This book is good for anybody who is struggling, because I can't imagine a deeper struggle than what this woman struggles with in this book. This tells the story of Cameron's wife, who is a very active woman. She's the mother of 3 beautiful children. On a family vacation, she suffers a horrific accident and she becomes paralyzed. And this is the story of her recovery, her facing that struggle, her facing what's happened to her and having an entirely different life because of it. And at the same time that this has happened, the family discovers an injured, orphaned magpie, and they help this magpie recover. And so there's the correlations between this woman and this bird and how their respective struggles help each other. And it's such a beautiful story. And it shows these beautiful, touching, very intimate black and white photographs of this family and the bird and the woman. And it's just a beautiful book. So if you have somebody who's struggling, I would recommend this book. But it doesn't have to be a book about struggle. I don't want to end this on a sad note. What is a book that made you think, so-and-so would love this book? The final tradition for this tag is Christmas cookies. I love baking with my family when I'm around them. Our family has an annual day where we bake cookies all day long. And it's one of my favorite traditions. And of course, I love to eat Christmas cookies. And of course, cookies is something that I like to share with people. So for this one, share and tag some of your friends. Now, before I tag my friends, I want to say, I don't know if you're gonna like this tag or not. It might suck. So please, absolutely no pressure in doing this tag. I will tag Jim from Jim of Books, Jim from Bookish Gems, Gloria from Gloria Z. Thompson, Nikki from Red Dot Reads, and I picked one at random from a channel that I watch regularly, and that is Jordan from Sorry Booked Solid. All of these ladies have wonderful channels. If you haven't watched them already, please go check them out. Ladies, again, no pressure, but I would love to see your answers to this. I hope you enjoyed this tag. I really enjoyed creating it and making it and filming it for you. If you don't have a Booktube channel, I would love to hear your answers for these questions. Do you have thoughts on the books that I mentioned here, or did you think of some other books that might have matched these prompts? I would love to hear about them, or you can just say hi down in the doodly-doo. If you're still watching at this point, please feel free to give that like button a boop, and a subscribe would be wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.